clearly you're here, so no baby has been born yet. But if you have to
What
run
if
out
I
the
was like, well,
room,
it's happening right now, but this
I was gonna
podcast
say,
recording
if you
took
have to run out
precedent.
the room, like I understand what's going on. No questions asked.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
but cool, yeah. I appreciate you joining. It's good to, I always like getting Bulls fans on because I feel like it can get very personal very quickly.
Well, you
Um,
you understand. You
if
understand.
exactly. But yeah, thanks again for joining, man. And little tip off question I like to start with is starting with some music. Curious what you've been listening to a little bit lately.
Mm, what have I been listening to? Well, I the thing is that on Sunday nights I host a karaoke residency in Chicago, and I hear a lot of music on Sunday nights, and it's if you can imagine the arsenal of karaoke jams that I'm subject to every week,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of go-tos that people love you know, to pull out when they're performing for everybody at karaoke. So what have I been listening to? I've been listening to a lot of those songs.
Yep.
But aside from that, let's see. I'll be honest, I've been in a little bit of a vacuum with some projects that I'm working on that
Hmm.
are things that I'm either producing or co-writing, and then some things that I've got coming out soon that have been kind of dominating like my time for listening to music. So
Sure.
I know that sounds like a little bit of a I don't know, a cop out because I'm not really talking about like new music I'm listening to, but it is new music, just people haven't heard it yet.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I guess also going back to karaoke, I'm curious what the top jams usually are being sung in there.
Yeah, well, I'll I'll start by saying that like, the most standard like karaoke jams that people would do at big karaoke nights, I don't get as many of those. We have like a
Hmm.
pretty big group of regulars that are there, and
Sure.
they don't do too many of the like
Yeah.
Don't Stop Believings
Right.
and Sweet Caroline. Like we don't get too much of that, but we
Uh-huh.
do get a lot of Taylor Swift, and we do get a lot of Paramore.
Ah,
Those
yes.
two seem to like happen every week no matter what.
For
So
sure.
I
It's
mean,
is it kind of like it's like meeting halfway in between like those emo nights that are, spinning around. Sometimes it's kind of like that and then expanding beyond that. But we're not going with yeah. Don't stop believing.
yeah, I mean, every once in a while, I mean, it'll happen. I mean, especially if it's like if because it's Sunday night. So if it is like a Monday holiday or
Yeah.
something, and there's a lot of like not regulars there that are just out because it's Sunday
Right.
night, then you do get more of those songs. And I don't have anything against those. I mean, they're
For
they're
sure.
big great jams for a reason. And if the crowd's in the right place, I'll say mentally, but also physically, then then those songs can rip.
I think my go-to, which is not in my vocal range at all, but I always try for Thunder Road.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's a tough one, but it's a fun one.
Yeah.
Um,
I appreciate when people go for it,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's a no judgment zone for sure. And I mean, if I were to be judging, it would be on passion and creativity. It would not necessarily be on performance. Though we do get some good singers. I will say that.
For sure. Um, cool. Yeah, I gotta make my way out to one of these nights.
Oh yeah.
Um, but you did mention, you've been working on some projects and stuff. I know that specifically with Spitalfield, you've been doing a lot of shows recently. I know you're kicking off a tour with early November coming up
Yeah.
soon.
Hmm.
Is any of that new music related to Spitalfield or the other projects that you're able to talk about?
Yeah. Nothing new from the band yet.
Yeah.
But having been inactive for so long, and then this past year being so active, I mean,
Right.
it's first and foremost, it's put us in the same room a lot and same van and same airplane and all that. So we've had a lot of time to reconnect, and playing these anniversary shows and some of the festivals and things like that. Of course, it like kind of lights a fire in a way where you end up being like, man, this feels so good. Like, let's just do it again. And
Mhm.
I kind of like told myself and told the guys like, let's wait till that anniversary tour is over before we actually start talking about that stuff, because
Right.
it's easy to get caught up in it, especially because, some of the bigger cities, when there's folks coming out and piling in and singing along and having that great like reconnect with music that meant something to you a long time ago and, maybe still does. Having those nights, it's very easy to fall into that, like, we're back.
Right.
And it's like we're not entirely back, but I will say that having now finished that anniversary and now having more things coming up on the docket, it feels good. It does feel good. And I am itching to do something
Mhm.
more rock, and something that is, kind of wanting to be, I don't know, poured out of me a little bit, because the energy's been back. I've been playing with those fellows, and um I love being in charge of myself with all my solo stuff, and with my, just calling my own shots, and doing previously a lot of touring with just a guitar, because I didn't have to rely on anybody else.
Mhm.
It was like I could kind of do what I needed to do and also what I wanted to do. And, once you are back into, band mode, it's like it's a lot of livelihoods on the line, and there's a lot of opinions, and, everybody's got their own lives and families and everything else. So it's
Right.
like, it's different, but I do crave that. I'll be honest. Like, I do love that collaboration. So,
Cool. Yeah. And I feel like, right now there's a lot of sort of, nostalgia led reunions and festivals and things going on like that.
mhm.
Was it easy to to kind of slip back into there, or is it kind of like a weird feeling kind of getting back in? I don't know what's kind of like the level there for you.
Yeah, I'd say it was easy to fall back into it once it got rolling. And
Yeah.
I think that, previously, when we had done anniversary performances or gotten together for a special occasion, the thing was that was always kind of like a crash course. Everyone's back in town, we rehearse a little bit, and then we play a show, and then it would be over. And those
Mhm.
were always a lot of fun and a lot of energy, but the difference was, this time we did it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And then after we did a support tour with Hawthorne Heights and Armor for Sleep, then we started doing our headlining shows. And those were like some of the longest sets we'd ever played. And it was partially because we wanted to make sure that if there were fans coming out, that they were like, getting to experience not just that album, but some other songs too. And
Mhm.
really, bang for their buck, right? And their time, because everyone's in a different spot now than they were 20 years ago, or at least most people are.
Totally.
So once we started to hit stride on doing those things, I feel like we fell right back into it. And it is something that is a big part of me that, was missing for a while. And even though I was getting to perform and getting to, stay creative and driven musically for a lot of different reasons, between my own material and the platform that I co-founded called Downwrite, which we could talk
Hmm.
about in a little bit. But, I was busy as all heck, and it was all music, and that was great. But a big part of where I come from, and a big part of why anybody cares at all about anything that I do from a music standpoint, is because of the band. And, I was missing that. So it's felt amazing, and I feel like we've gotten pretty tight, and it's been a lot of fun. And it's interesting to kind of play those old songs, not just to revisit the, like, content of those songs, but also as a performer, vocally, to get myself back in that kind of shape for singing,
Right.
because it's my vocal range was different when I was 19, 20, 21 years old. It's just what it is.
Right.
Science.
True.
So,
Yeah.
but it's been good. It's been good, and I've really enjoyed that challenge.
Cool. Yeah, and I was able to catch you did a couple shows at University, which was really cool to see. Because both of you guys I was, a big fan of when, you guys were coming up, and so it was nice to kind of hop back in. And does it have that same sort of, not just with Spitalfield with the band, but like playing with other bands from, when you guys were coming up as well? Is that kind of like the same sort of like getting back in the saddle with that is kind of fun to remember?
It is fun, and some of the groups never really went anywhere. Like when we toured
Yeah,
with Hawthorne, like Hawthorne has been at it the whole time, and I
totally.
was blessed to get some offers to, spend some time with them when I got to open for them solo on a variety of tours and stuff. But very interesting to see the bands that never left, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially some of our peers, like, Silverstein and Bayside and Hawthorne, of course, and like seeing those folks having never, you know actually, having never really stopped. Like,
Right.
we like officially called it quits, like we did. And we were gone for a long time, and when
Sure.
we did come back, it was very much so just like a one-off show, usually in Chicago, where we did some stuff for the 10 year of Remember Right Now, where we did like
Hmm.
14 cities. But either way, I mean, we haven't had any creative output in a
Yeah.
very, very long time. And we certainly hadn't spent the amount of time we spent on the road this past year. So it's cool. And like doing stuff with the junior varsity or something like that, that is like very intentional and it's very fun because they're in a similar spot where they, aren't really a full-time thing. So, to get to do each other's like hometowns and stuff was just a
Yeah.
riot. And I think reconnecting with folks is just it's really special because I'll be honest, it doesn't feel the same. It's not like, oh, we're back and it feels like it did. It's like it feels different. But
Totally.
it's a welcome feeling.
Yeah. And I feel like it's really interesting when you have bands like you said with Junior Varsity, and you have like these Chicago bands who like you kind of like go back to. And I know I've had Adam Siska on what the Academy is, and like just talking about like that Chicago kind of scene when, back what, 15 years ago. Um,
Mhm.
Such a magical scene with so many great bands, and like it's really cool to see you playing again with some of those bands and kind of calling back to that. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. It's been fun. And I think trying to take it all in because I know this window's open right now and I know the
Right.
nostalgia is big, but I'm always treating these opportunities like you just don't know when those offers stop or when your life changes,
Sure.
and it's been really fun for me and very fortunate to have supportive folks around me, both pushing me to do it but also like helping me to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it also just feels good to just keep playing music in different ways too, right?
Yes, for sure.
Um, you do seem to keep busy though, outside of, playing music, as you mentioned with, you have Downwrite as well. How did it's obviously such like a unique idea and something I feel like that felt instinctual that should exist. How did you kind of arrive at coming up with that, and how did that get started?
Yeah. Downright started as a conversation between me and one of my best friends, Bob Nana. And
Hmm.
we were, talking, this is like late 2012. We were talking about how between albums and between tours, to find ways to sustain yourself, the types of jobs that you would get, at that time, like as a musician, would be something that has to be very flexible to allow you to
Hmm.
drop to go hit the road for a number of weeks or to make an album and then go promote it and everything else. And those jobs would generally be like retail and bartending and things like that. And we were thinking like, well, is there something else we could be doing that that we're good at and that we would enjoy doing?
Right.
And we were thinking about how it'd be fun just to directly put a line out to your fans to say, hey, why don't you give me something to write about and I'll write something just for you. And it'll be just a personal exchange, like a bedroom recording kind of
Hmm.
thing, something that you could do, carve out time to do it and do it. And we were thinking about just kind of building a site for the two of us to offer that as just like a, commission Mark, commission Bob, or commission us together to do something special for you. And that that felt good, and in a way, like you said, instinctual. Like it felt like something that should exist that
Hmm.
doesn't. And you know we were thinking very quickly after we came up with that idea, like, well, maybe it's more of a community, like maybe it's something where we get a handful of artists that we've toured with who might feel the same way about wanting to do something creative and get paid for it, but also to like make your fans happy and I don't know, just try something different. So we um, brought in an old friend of Bob's and a friend of mine, Dan Reed, who was on the tech side of things. And
Hmm.
he helped us build the first version of Downright. And I'm sorry, my mic bumped into it. We were trying to, you know, make it as simple as possible in a way that you could explain quickly. And we wanted it to be something where fans could, kind of select from artist to artist, like what, and artists could pick their own paths, right? They could set
Hmm.
their own prices, their own turnaround times, etc. It shouldn't be that Downright is the service. It should be that Downright is the platform and the artist is providing the service, right?
Yeah.
So that community grew kind of quickly once we first launched, and we, very heavy into the emo punk, world, because those were the folks that we knew best and
For
who
sure.
were a phone call away, or, at the time, phone calls were still in. People were still making
Yeah.
making calls. Um, but we took that, and we started to learn from it. Like, we started to learn from the types of requests that were coming in, learn from, the pain points that either fans were feeling or artists were feeling along the way. But the overarching sentiment was like, this is great, this works.
Mhm.
Artists are getting paid, they're being creative, fans are super happy. So we wanted that to evolve. We wanted it to become a scalable platform for any artist, not just artists that we know. And we
Right.
wanted it to, eventually be something that could be a tool, in the tool belt of any artist, whether they want to, be open all the time, or they want to open up a shop for special moments or occasions or whatever. And artists really now, fast forward a decade, can do what they want, right? They can
Yeah.
do private use stuff, they can do commercial use stuff. We've got independent filmmakers commissioning music for their films from artists they love. We've got artists making themselves available for big life moments for fans, or being real vulnerable with it, and actually picking some of their favorite Downwrite songs and re-record them to release through their own projects, which is special too. So
Cool.
Downwrite is growing. We're kind of in our third iteration now, and you know we're still here, and
Yeah.
we still care about it. And I think in a way, the world is more ready for it now than ever, based on the way things have gone. Like, just to
Yeah.
put in perspective, when Downwrite launched, Spotify really wasn't like a topic of conversation yet.
True.
And even though we were in a digital era, we were talking more about downloads, and more about
Yeah.
people downloading music versus what they do now. So, you know, you got to be forward thinking and smart, and in a way, I believe that if Downright can break through to that next level, we would start to see more and more innovative ways to use the platform. So
Totally.
we're keeping at it.
Yeah, and I feel like it even like predates something like Cameo, which
Mhm.
is a similar-ish idea, but like obviously Downright has more of the personal and more thoughtful and complete output. But uh yeah, I feel like I know, yeah, I noticed the comparisons to like something like Cameo, but I feel like yeah, something like Downright is definitely more monumental and thoughtfully put into.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I think that actually it's things like Cameo that kind of allow everyday folks to understand what Downright is,
True.
and I think that because artists really are driving their own traffic, an artist's way of framing what they're doing and how they want to present it is everything. Because if you if you put the word out to your fans that it's available, number one, you still have to, deliver.
Yeah. Right.
It's not just a point and shoot quick, video recording to say congratulations or how are you. And those things
Yeah.
are important too, because I think, for all the fluff that comes with it, there's probably some really powerful things that happen as well.
Yeah.
But, to your point, there's a little more to it. And it's something where, as an artist on the platform, not just like working on it behind the scenes, but as an artist on the platform, I still kind of get that rush when I deliver the song, that I'm excited and nervous for them to hear it. And I'm hoping for some kind of feedback, and
Yeah.
I'm, aside from then feeling um, some kind of feeling when I actually like then see a payment come through where I'm like, wow, I just got paid to make music. It's like life's all right, that's good. But there's still that like creating that feeling of like, oh man, something's happening here. And,
Mhm.
a lot of artists, I feel like they put themselves out there and they end up doing bigger and better things than they thought they maybe were going to when they first got started.
Sure.
And I think part of it is just forcing artists to use that muscle, forcing artists to create, because when musicians are, and I'll speak for myself, but I think this is something I've heard from other artists too, is that, when you're making your own music, you put yourself out there, you release music, nowadays it's singles, sometimes it's still albums, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
between those things, we're in this world that's expecting constant contact and constant content,
Mhm.
and I think that Downright is actually a really great outlet to be constantly writing and creating, but maybe with a little more value to it and not as much just checking boxes.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. I honestly, like I mentioned, it's like it does feel like intuitive that it's something that should exist because I remember, being, if I go way back to like when I was in high school, like being like, oh man, it'd be cool if I could like get a custom song from like the artist my girlfriend likes to invite her to homecoming, like, and
Yeah.
like that stuff like didn't exist, and then like here it is, like something truly out there. So it felt like definitely a natural progression of something that should be happening.
Yeah, and we do see some like fun stuff and we
Yeah,
see some heavy stuff too. So I mean, I
yeah,
think, as long as the artist is in control and the
sure,
artist is earning the lion's share of everything and the artist has the ability to accept and decline based on
right.
the prompt and the request, then I think it's all fair game.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely awesome. I'm glad it's still going strong, and guys sound like you're looking to keep growing it.
That's the
Um,
plan. So fingers crossed.
yeah. And I don't really have much of a good segue to this, but how about we talk some basketball? It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
pivot from custom songs to talking basketball, but we are both Chicago folks, so I know that Bulls talk will come easy. Maybe
Oh
it won't
man.
because in talking with you previously, it felt that you have a positive outlook on this Bulls team, and I'm not sure if I do, but
I
I'm
don't at the
curious to know in
moment.
general how you're feeling about the Bulls team.
I suppose I am for all my Chicago fandom stuff, I lean optimist. I always
Hmm.
do. And I think part of that is because for me it's more fun. It's more fun
Yeah,
to care about the team in a way that, you know, give some sense of hope because I don't mind being middle of the pack like this particular season like it's it's not going to make or break my my life if the Bulls don't advance into the
right.
actual playoffs out of the play-in, but I'm thinking to myself how you get attached to certain players, and sometimes you do kind of get attached to mediocrity, and that can happen, especially in Chicago, a major market with incredible resources and usually a good amount of talent, just
Yeah.
not performing, underperforming, or whatever it is. And I think that this team in particular is a different kind of frustration than I've felt recently with the Bulls because we've seen them rise to the
Hmm.
challenge against some really good teams. And you say, if they could play like this consistently, they would be competing in the playoffs. They
Yeah.
wouldn't just be hoping to get in, have to win two must-win games to then go play the Celtics and probably get blown out. Like that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm still hoping they get in and get to play the Celtics because I think the Bulls can be annoying to the Celtics. I think it's fun once you're in, it's fun to be the dark horse. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, I really, I wouldn't wager on the Bulls to advance past the Celtics, but it would be fun. It'd be fun as heck to see them actually play in a series if they can be as healthy as they can be. I mean,
Right.
this Bulls team is missing some key players. We know that, and I think like the whole thing with Ball has just been this like hurry up and wait with for season after season after season, and now it's like okay, has the mule caught up to this carrot? Like, is it happening
Right.
now? Like, are we gonna get like a full strength squad next year? Like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. It's really hard to tell, and it is that sort of thing where like we lose to bad teams and we play decent against good teams sometimes. It's the inconsistency that's the struggle, but some of that unpredictability maybe is kind of what you need in the playoffs.
Well, that's right. And you need a healthy Alex Caruso and you need
Yes,
an angry Andre Drummond. That's what you need. Like I'm not anti Vooch. I'm not. Like I think that
sure. I'm not
When
either.
Vooch is
Yeah,
on, he's fun to watch and he's a very talented, especially offensive player. I don't see the effort on defense from him more often than
yeah,
not. You usually see it once he gets angry about something, which is good, but I wish he could kind of play with that a little bit more often.
Sure.
And it is what it is. But I do think that when you've got the Twin Towers out there, you've seen more success. Like when you have Andre Drummond playing more minutes and you have overlap where Vooch and Drummond are on the floor. That's kind of been the secret sauce, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Of course, the emergence of Kobe White
Hmm.
and Caruso is just the X factor at all times. So I do think that Andre Drummond is one of the best rebounders in the league, and he's and Alex Caruso is one of the best defenders in the league,
Hmm.
and DeRozan is one of the best closers in the league. And then I start to go, wait a minute, that's a lot of like cool little pieces to maybe win a game. The problem is, can you win a series?
Right. And I feel like to have those sort of magical seasons, like you need something like, for example, like you mentioned with Drummond, like probably having the best part of his career since he was like that top guy in Detroit. Um, to get like that extra bit out of someone like that is goes a really long way. And I feel like when you look back on like really good seasons, like you have to have those moments like that. And I feel like Drummond is bringing that for sure.
He's bringing it for sure. Yeah, and I'm very happy that Green is back because I think that
Oh God.
I mean, really like talk about a spark. Like
Yeah.
him and Caruso are both sparks out there for sure. But then also I think that they elevate the players around them because he gets a little flashy and like in a
Mhm.
fun way, like aggressive flashy. He's not like trying to outdo his own skill sets, but it's like, given the opportunity, he will throw down like a reverse dunk because he
Yeah.
knows it fires up the team. Like he's not even worried about fouling out. He'll go hard at you, right? And I
Mhm.
think that that's a good piece that this team needs right now. And if you do look to last season and see how the Bulls essentially had the Heat um, at the edge, and the Bulls were going to advance, and they blew it, and that was brutal to watch. But then watch the Heat ascend and actually go as far as they did. Like that always gives me hope that anything can
True.
happen.
I definitely always, it's very easy in sports to play what ifs and stuff. And
Yeah.
with that last play-in tournament, you know, if I think of if we did beat the Heat, do we get swept by the Bucks then? Like, like there is a whole different world where like the Heat went to the finals, but if we beat the Heat, then what does the rest of that sort of playoffs look like? Like really, who knows whether it's us winning or not? Like the Bucks could have gone to the finals again. Like it's really interesting to see how that could have played out, but there's no matching playoff Jimmy sometimes.
No, for sure. And they and Spolstra. I mean,
Yeah,
talk about. I mean, it's almost like they're playing with their food until they get to the playoffs, which isn't a good idea when there's a play-in involved. But
it's true.
if they, you know, if they get to where they get to, they get there.
Which the Warriors kind of had that feeling, and now here they are, like sitting in the play-in. Actually,
It's crazy. I
um,
think it's wild that the Western Conference is so stacked that you've got these play-in teams that are true like competitive teams that have a chance to win it all. Like it's kind of nuts.
it's really honestly, I think it's awesome for basketball in general, but to see you have the Lakers and the Warriors now in the play-in, and the top teams you have Thunder, Timberwolves, like these are teams we never see like dominate, and it's very refreshing, and I'm very excited, at least for the West, because the
Well, the
East,
youth
I
is
mean,
up top too. I mean, look at the West. The youth is
yeah,
up top. So that
exactly,
is that is fun. And it's crazy to think that a team like the Warriors or the Lakers would be in this situation, but here they are. And those teams are not young. I mean, they have a
right,
couple of young pieces here and there, but they're veteran teams. But that's the other thing is that when you get into the playoffs, they've been there and done that.
totally.
Like we'll see how the Thunder and the Timberwolves handle themselves with that top seed because they're gonna have to play one of those teams.
It's true. It's very true. Well, looking at the play-in like right now, I mean, I know we're recording, and this probably by the time this episode comes out, it'll drastically change, but who knows? So, like in terms of the Bulls layout right now, we're sitting at the bottom, so we're playing the second tier of the play-in, meaning we have to
Mhm,
win twice. If
mhm.
we win against, I think currently we would be playing the Hawks.
Yep.
So if we win that, there are I think six different teams potentially we could play because the East is so ridiculous. Pretty much after seed two, any of them could land in the play-in.
Hmm. That's
And
right. And they're
so,
all separated by very little. And also look at the 76ers who are like suddenly back full force with Joel Embiid, and you go, well,
right.
they were a dominant team when he was there and they were healthy, and then obviously their record took a tumble.
Yeah.
And then they kind of clawed their way back into an okay spot, but now they're back. So nobody wants to run into that.
And it's especially the Bulls because I feel like the Sixers historically have just clowned the Bulls.
Oh my God. I
Embiid
mean,
will put up
yeah.
54 or something like that.
Yeah, that's been a sore spot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference is kind of wacky. But it's wild how far and away the Celtics are in that number one. They're on an island out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And more than anything, obviously you have all those teams, after you have the Heat, Sixers, Pacers, Cavs, Knicks, Magic, and like any of them is in the realm of possibility of beating. And the Celtics are in the realm of possibility of beating, but it is crazy how alone they are out there, but like everyone else is so close.
Oh yeah. And I think um if you look at the Bulls Hawks matchup, I'll try to like I'll wear my Bulls goggles for a moment and then I'll take them off. I'll wear them and I'll say I think the Bulls are a better team than the Hawks. I do think that.
I agree with that actually.
So I would think that they, especially with the home game, hopefully, like they could win that game. But it's also take them off. It's the Bulls, and the Bulls somehow managed to give up 40 points in a quarter every once in a while, or only put up 14 points in a quarter
Yeah.
every once in a while. And it's usually those big games that they have those starts and then they're playing from behind and they'll make it interesting. They'll make a run. Last night they playing a great team and they made a run and they was like, okay, like suddenly you're within six, you were down almost 20, like whatever it is. But I don't want to see that in the
Yeah.
play in. I mean, I want to see it because I want it to be exciting, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah. I
Not on
don't
the losing end of it.
I don't know the last time the Bulls had any sort of playoff game where it was like a blowout. Probably Derrick Rose, right? Like
Mm.
that's probably the last time. And even then it was like nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Um,
I do think though some of the Bulls bench players can make a difference.
totally.
Like it's fun to see Torrey Craig
Absolutely. Yeah.
playing hard and draining threes, and it's Dalen Terry is coming on. I mean, he still seems overmatched physically by pretty
Mhm.
much everybody, but he plays hard and he makes some big splashes once in a while. And I think maybe some veteran players will kind of sleep on him a little bit, and then he'll get the best of them, at least for a
Right.
play or two. Um, but yeah, I think we could win that first game, and then I think we could win a second game too. But to your point, it could be any one of those teams. So who knows? If we
Yep.
do get in and then we go play Boston, I mean, it'd be fun. I mean, maybe someone gets injured. I don't know.
I'm gonna ask for two predictions. I want your Bulls goggles prediction for what you think will happen, and then I want your overall NBA, finals kind of prediction.
Yeah. Um, well, I'll go goggles and say somehow they win this first game and they make it interesting, right? If they were to get through the play-in, which I think they could, I mean, I think they have enough talent to get through it if they play at the level we know they're capable of. So let's just say they do. Let's just say they play their best ball. Then I believe they do advance, and I believe they win at least a game against the Celtics, but that's a one and done, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's my prediction for the Bulls. I mean,
Fair.
I hope they get there though, because I would like to watch them play the Celtics. I think it'd be fun, and I do think that you could maybe steal one of the first two games somehow,
Mhm.
and then it's a series because they'd come home to Chicago and it'd be fun. I don't know. I don't expect it. I mean, the Celtics are probably the best team, right? In a lot of ways.
Sure.
But to parlay that into your other question, I I think the West is still I still think the Nuggets are the team to beat in the West,
Yeah.
and I think it's almost entirely because of Nikola Jokic. um, but it is wild how many interesting stars are out there in the West and how they can take over a game. Obviously, Luca. just can take
Right.
over a game at any given moment. And it seems like him and Kyrie are kind of gelling.
They got hot at the right time.
Yeah, because it seemed like they weren't really playing a lot of basketball together at
Yeah.
first, both physically because they weren't like on the
Right.
court at the same time because Kyrie, but then also it just didn't seem like it was really working. But now it's working.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you know, I think SGA is the next factor too because he's just MVP caliber right now.
Right.
And and that team is good.
They're
They're
just
very
so
good.
young. It's just we'll see if youth is a factor or if maybe they rise to the occasion and maybe they really are like, all right, yep, we're here now. But who knows?
Yeah, and I think maybe they're the kind of team that if they do exit early, they'll be back, right? Like I
Oh
think
yeah,
they're at the beginning of their run, whereas some of these
absolutely.
other teams are at the end of their run. But I think the Nuggets are still like when they turn it on are like so hard to beat. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's just like if you're on the other side, you're just like, all right, what minutes is Jokic off the floor? Because we have to make our move then.
Right.
It's like the old way.
I want to root for the Timberwolves. It's just very hard to believe that they will be as consistent
Hmm.
when they don't have all of their players kind of around because Cat's still hurt, right? Like, and so you need Ant to really take over every night. And I don't
Yeah.
know if he can.
I don't know if he can either. I don't.
I
I
love watching
may.
him play though.
Oh, sure, yeah, and I mean, there's nothing like NBA playoffs. It's
Yeah.
fun, fun, fun. Uh, and yeah, like I think the Western Conference is just so insane. Like I look forward to those games, and and it's fun too
Totally.
because a lot of those games are on later at night, so it's kind of like get a chance to wind down when the
Yeah.
house is quiet and just kind of watch. Um, so I'm looking forward to it. But no, my prediction at this point is Celtics and Nuggets, and um, it's hard not to think that the Celtics would take it based on how good they are, but I also think playoff Nuggets is something else. So
True.
I wouldn't be shocked if Nuggets repeat, and that's maybe my prediction.
I feel like that's an easy one to buy into for sure.
Yeah.
Jokic is just there's no one like him.
No.
So
No,
uh
and I've actually kind of like gotten more and more into his personality too because it is kind of insane because he gets so like red in the face and in the nose and he's so big and he's top
mhm.
heavy, but he runs the floor hard.
Oh yeah.
And he also, when he does campaign for calls or whatever, it's actually very entertaining to watch him. But he does seem like a good teammate and he does seem like he's fairly humble, like when he's in his post
Mhm.
games and stuff. And I forget how young he is. It's like that is also kind of nuts. Like he's
For
not
all
he's not a
like
spring
the
chicken, but he's
yeah, for all
he's
like
not.
the memes that come out of him, like I want to get back to my horses and all that stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
when he's on the court, like he cares nothing more than basketball.
Yeah.
Like that is the single most important thing at the moment. So like say what you will about him as like a person, but like he is so good at basketball and he cares so much about it. So like you can't really dispute that.
I like to treat some of these European players that are just absolutely ballers, like kind of treat them like Bond villains or something because it's more fun. It's more fun if you treat them that
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the whole Jokic subplot really does add that element to it.
way.
Just a man and his horses.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I guess, quickly pivoting to, the Bulls teams of yesteryear. I mean, a little nostalgia. What was like some early memories being a Bulls fan for you?
Mm. Well, I was in this incredible sweet spot because I was born in 83. So I was like just just old enough to understand how fun it was.
Yeah.
And those early 90s teams, I'm so attached to them.
Hmm.
And it spoiled us so brutally, like especially as a kid, because that's like what we knew was like, oh yeah, basketball, Bulls dominate. It's
Right.
like that's it. And there were so many fun and memorable series, and obviously it's like this era of basketball, where it's little little more chippy, right? And all these things. I don't think half those players were nearly as athletic as the current players, but it was
Sure.
something special about it. And it's not just the nostalgia talking. I think there is truly some special teams from that era. And I can't even really imagine. It's like because I loved playing NBA Jam back when it was like every team had the one superstar and the sidekick superstar, and then the third like, squeaky wheel. Um, you know, that was fun. And I
Hmm.
can't even imagine being a fan from, Cleveland or New York or Detroit during the Jordan era where you just
Oof.
couldn't get past him, right? And that was that. And it's,
Yeah.
Jordan couldn't do it alone. We all know that. I mean, Scottie Pippen might be one of the best number two players of all
Hmm.
time, and he's a number one on a lot of teams.
Right.
And yeah, some memories for me would be John Paxson closing out in the finals, like that shot, because you know he's the little guy. He's the little guy, and he looked 20 years older than everybody else for some reason. I mean, he
Right.
when you look back on it now, he looks young because it's like we see him with
Well, sure.
different lens now. But at the time, I was like this guy seems like he's so much older than everybody.
I feel like a lot of 90s players in general had that look where it's like
Yeah.
there was a guy on the I guess it was the Bullets at the time, Jeff Ruland, who looked like he had to be like 55 years old, but he was probably only like 28.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I always love too, like the players on the other teams that because when you're a kid during the 90s Bulls era, this is kind of like it's not in a way there wasn't really social media and there wasn't really instant access to all the information. So you literally kind
Right.
of had to tune in. And when you saw the players warming up and stuff and they were talking pregame, you're getting your info then.
Hmm.
There is no like pre-reading, like unless you're listening to sports radio and listening to them talk about it, you're not getting that information anywhere. So
Right.
when you had some of these players on other teams that became your personal villains, like your Danny Ainges, or the guys like that, you wanted to bring them down. John Starks, of course, just like these players that they got under your skin as a Bulls fan, and then you wanted to watch the Bulls bring the hammer.
Yep.
Also, back
Totally.
when Benny the Bull was just overweight, it's like that was special too. That was special too.
The rise of Benny the Bull is a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
The best mascot in all of sports.
Oh
Gotta
yeah.
be.
And one of the highest paid and
Yeah,
definitely one of the most athletic.
that's true. Absolutely.
But
Um,
yeah, lots of good memories of those 90s Bulls teams. And I also, as a White Sox fan, which is very, very, very difficult right now, um, the Jordan baseball era being kind of stuck in the middle of both of
mhm.
those. It's like the championship sandwich with the White Sox farm team system in the middle is pretty brilliant.
As a Cubs fan, my condolences.
Yeah, thanks. It's rough.
It's, it's really an interesting time right now for that team. Um, cool. So the last thing I kind of like to do is like a little kind of participation game, and it's called Build a Band, where the goal is to make a band out of NBA players, and how no matter how ridiculous it is, what instrument they play, whatever you got, I'm curious to see what you can come up with.
Well, I was kind of teasing it out earlier that I kind of love the Euro players that to me
Yeah.
I've kind of made them into like almost like Bond-esque villains and I love their game and I also think that a a band consisting of all players like that whose music sounded kind of like music from Mission Impossible or music from, kind of like loungy, a little bit, a little bit mysterious, a little
Hmm.
bit, a little bit of a crooner up front, which I believe should be Jokic singing because I can only imagine the type
Yes.
of hilarious crooning that we get out of Jokic, on the mic. I was thinking that Luca could be on the keytar because you're gonna. I mean, it could just be keyboards. I mean, I gave him a break. He could just be on the keyboards, but I believe
Sure.
the keytar would encourage him to make some side to side movements that would be probably somewhat endearing.
Hmm.
Um, I was thinking lead guitar, Sabonis, because I love Sabonis,
Yeah.
and I, how the hell was Sabonis not just like an all-star? Like I just don't
Makes no
really get
sense.
it. I just don't get it.
Like
Um,
that's you know, it's one thing to look at stats on a page and that alone, yes, he should be an all-star from that. But like when you watch him play, he dominates. Like he passes the eye test very easily too. So like on both accounts, I don't understand it.
Yeah, right. And he's also one of those players that I love his post games, and I love his energy on the court. It's just it is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Um, so then with those guys, then I was also thinking, if not just for the name alone, stage name Bogdanovich, like w- shout out to his parents because
Yeah.
that's an incredible choice.
Are you gonna go with
Um,
both of them?
Well, no, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go with both. I mean, well, we could though. We could. I mean, there could be a little bit of like a, yeah, because you know what? Sometimes the energy is real with
Hmm.
brothers. We've seen it. We've seen it. Van Halen,
There's lots of brothers that play in bands together.
and a lot of brothers that play in the NBA together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then so oh yeah, yeah, for him though, I was thinking like more like auxiliary percussion and backup vocals. Like I'm not really
Okay.
gonna like lean too much on the skill sets here. I'm thinking more like tasteful um bongos, congas,
Hmm.
chimes, but really a lot of backup vocals.
Sure.
You know, and also some atmospheric stuff,
Yeah.
like, triggering some cool effects and pads. I
Kind of more
think
like the touring band member.
right, auxiliary player. Yeah. That's totally it. That's totally it. And because as a Bulls fan, I really want to continue to root for Vooch. And I think that he's a big man. He's got a soft, approachable face when he smiles, but he usually doesn't. I feel like he could be the rhythm, the rhythm section we need. Like he could be back
Hmm.
behind the kit. The drum set would have to be pretty darn big,
Yeah, yeah.
which would be interesting. Um, yeah, I mean that so far the band's pretty well rounded, but we still need a bass player.
Yeah.
So what's a good Euro player that could hold down some bass guitar licks?
Oh, I don't know why maybe a little Dario Saric in there.
Mm.
I feel like
Mhm.
he's a little smoother. I feel like in terms of his gameplay, it's not like, we got a lot of big men in this band. So like
Mhm.
they're kind of
That's
bringing
probably
that
their name, the big man.
the big men, but they're bringing that like the kind of more heavier like Vooch on the percussion. Jokic, he's a big guy, but he's getting softer on the vocals.
Oh yeah, and I'm
Um,
seeing him in like a tuxedo.
yeah, but I feel like Saric for some reason he's a lot smoother, lankier, kind of flowy, and I feel like he'll get some put him on an upright bass maybe if you're
Mm-hmm.
going for that lounge act.
Yeah, yeah. I think upright bass is the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean, this is a pretty good band, the Big Men, but I want to find a way to incorporate that they're European. So it's like, I'll have to think about the name a little bit, but
Find like the Serbian translation for the big men. I don't know what that is, but all right. I like that though. That's a good band. I feel like no one has gone like the thematic approach like that, and I feel like if you pick all Euro players, it's very easy to be like, oh, they're going to be like industrial,
oh, right, that would be what you would think, but
but
I'm
no.
thinking Bond villain, like music that's Bond
Yeah,
villain-esque.
yeah, that's great. Like kind of like almost bossa nova
A
vibes.
little Ethiopian jazz, a little, they've got a lot to offer, I think.
Yeah, love that. Well, awesome, dude. I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you coming on. It's been great talking hoops. It's been great talking about music, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm just gonna say go Bulls, but it's a hard time to
All
be a
we can
Bulls
do is
fan.
hope. Yeah.
I just want to
Uh,
see some playoff basketball in Chicago. I don't care how we get there. Let's go. Let's go.
let's do it, man. And in terms of shows coming up, you got shows kind of you want to talk about or anything?
Yeah, well, there's not a lot in the immediate future over the next few months, but then end of June, yeah, we're out with early November for 8 cities and doing a few headlining shows and some of those off days. And we'll be announcing a handful of festivals this fall, or late summer and fall. And we'll see. I mean, there's opportunities are knocking, but we also have a lot of life stuff happening. And
Yeah,
I've got my wife and I are welcoming our second kiddo into the world this week. So it's, also good time to focus on family stuff too. So balancing it is the key, and
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to doing my best at that.
For sure. Absolutely. And congrats on that.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. It's been great. Let's go Bulls.
Yeah, go Bulls.